On today's show, the hits keep coming as the Houston Rockets are unable to slow down Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers, falling 124-115. Why has the Rockets defense regressed so much since the start of the new year, and how can they get back to playing the defense that they were playing earlier this season? The silver linings from this blowout loss, though, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore continue to impress in the minutes that they've gotten. We're going to break it all down for you coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
Throw it up to Jalen Green.
Sengun here in the short row. Oh, my, that's the no-look.
Jabari for three and the win. Yeah!
Look at Tari, Eason.
Here comes Tari. No!
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
The Houston Rockets select Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
One thing I have never done is not made the playoffs, and so we want to take that step here as well.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day. Whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym, thank you for being an everydayer and making the show part of your day every single day. Joining us now is your weekly co-host, none other than NBA draft enthusiast and diehard Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Here to break down yet another kind of brutal game here for the Houston Rockets. It's been a concerning trend as of late, Madison. This road trip has not been kind to the Rockets. A 124-115 loss to the Philadelphia 76ers, but do not let the final box score fool you. This game was not a 9-point game. This was not a close game. The Sixers dominated this game. The Rockets led, I believe they led once. Like very early on, it was 17-16, I believe it was. When they came back, they took the lead, and then it was all Sixers the rest of the way. I mean, they straight up dominated. They had a 19-point lead, I believe, at halftime, and they never took their foot off the gas. They controlled this game basically from that moment, midway, late first quarter, whatever, when the Rockets got back, took that lead, and then it was all Sixers the rest of the way. And what we're going to talk about before we get into some of maybe like the specifics, the nitty-gritty, what went wrong in this game, let's tackle the bigger problem here, Madison. The Rockets defense has just fallen off a cliff over these last, 8 to 10 games or so. And some of that coincides with missing Dillon Brooks and obviously Tari Eason as well. But Dillon Brooks back in the lineup now, and the defense still not great back-to-back games since the start of the new year.
Yeah,
Houston I want to give you that. No, sorry. That was terrible on me. I paused at the worst possible time. So that's on me, man. I just wanted to give the defensive rating before letting you go off because I know you've got thoughts about this. The Rockets are currently, since the start of the new year, so January 1st, the 2024 calendar year, they are the 19th best defense in the NBA. Their defense has plummeted from being what was at one point one of the best defense in the NBA. They are now good enough for 19th in the 9 games they played since the start of the new year. That is an absurd drop-off.
Yeah, man. I mean, you can really see it in the first quarters of games. I feel like, for the most part, I think this team is still paying attention to the game plan. I do think that they're still locked in on the game plan, but there's really just a lack of physicality from this team and toughness. I feel like, to me, teams feel comfortable out there. They feel comfortable on offense. They feel comfortable with what they're doing, and there's not enough early disruption, picking up early. And Dillon Brooks really spearheaded a lot of that, so it really hurt to not have him for that long stretch of time. But even tonight, there was just a lack of physicality where teams.
Hey, what you mean? No. What do you mean tonight? You owe $1 to the jar that Craig and Ryan were talking about during the game. They had the jar for anybody who called it because it was a day game. And so if you ever made the slip up, if you said tonight, I had a tweet during the game where I said something like tonight, and somebody called me out on it. I was like, damn it. All right. So you owe $1 to that jar, wherever that jar is.
I put my dollar in. But yes, today, the guys really just have to have more of a sense of urgency on that end of the floor. I feel like they are not locking in and playing with that sense of urgency until you get into the second halves after MA has kind of chewed them out. You know what I mean? After he's really gotten into them about, paying attention and attention to detail. And I think the physicality is what's missing most. I mean, also, I think this may be also something that I thought about when the Rockets were playing really well on defense earlier. I thought we had a bit of three-point shooting luck. I thought teams were getting decent shots from the perimeter. We were running hard. We were running them hard off the line, but they just weren't really making high percentages. But if you look at today, I believe they shot 48% from three. And that just is a number that you're not going to, win when teams or play good defense when teams are shooting that well. You've got
like 3-point shooting going maybe in the opposite direction, right? Where maybe earlier in the season, Rockets were getting some favorable shooting nights. Teams were struggling a little bit, so that probably helped a little bit in the defensive side of things, where it made the Rockets look a little bit better with teams shooting below maybe like the the NBA league average or whatever. Whereas these past two games, Boston and Philly were unconscious. They just couldn't, they flat out could not miss from three. Boston shooting over 50% from the 3-point line. Again, as you alluded to, the Sixers 48.5% from the 3-point line. Now the issue comes, some of that is, hey, the Rockets aren't being as aggressive defensively, right? They're giving up some uncontested, wide open looks, making some mistakes in the defensive game plan. We're also seeing, and trust me, we're going to get into some of the defensive, we're going to get into the overall game plan in this one, because my God, was it kind of a nightmare. It was a mess in this one. We're going to get there in the second segment, though. I don't know how much of what the Rockets' defensive identity, though, is, if it's just guys are just playing tired, if it's, again, we know, and we've heard about in the past, right? Coaches like Nick Nurse, who are so demanding defensively, who want you to buy into a really aggressive defensive scheme. We know that is exhausting, right? And that might be kind of a new reality for some of these guys, right? Not a new reality for Fred and Dillon, but a new reality for Jalen, for Alp, for Jabari, even though those guys want to, and I think are striving to be better, more, competent defenders, to try to lock in on a nightly basis. That's asking a lot of those guys to be that engaged defensively, to be a top tier defense, and then also to have the production on the offensive side. We may have finally gotten to a point where there's some, I don't want to say diminishing returns, but they're starting to run out of a little juice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Alperen Sengun has not been as good as he was in the beginning of the season, the first 20 games. I think in the paint in specific, right? Just trying to rotate, be there on time, and contest well at the rim. I think he's really regressed in that area, but it's a really hard thing to do for a player like Alp. You know what I mean? For him to be that mobile and cover so much ground, and it really just shines a light on the lack of rim protection we have down low. And Alp I think was overperforming early in the season, and you can see him, he's kind of regressing to the mean. So hopefully he can pick that back up, because I don't think he's been terrible. I don't think he's been bad, but he just hasn't been as good as he was when we were a top 5 defense.
And that's one of those things, right, that comes with the territory of it. Alp is asked to do so much and provide so much production for this team on the offensive end. When you look around the league and you see other star players that do as much, or have the usage that he does, or do as much as he does for a team, guys like, whether it's, you can look up and down the list, right? All the high usage guys, LeBron James, Jokic, Luka, whoever you want to pinpoint that is a high usage, arguably heliocentric guy, they're often guys who take plays off on defense, right? They rest on the defensive side of the ball because they are asked to do so much offensively. Whereas with Alp, it's just really tough, because for this Rockets team to work as a cohesive 5-man unit, all 5 guys have to be lockstep on the same page defensively to make it work, especially the way that Ime wants to play defense, switching consistently, all that stuff. So then when one guy kind of wanes a little bit, or a couple guys lose their focus, lose their edge, maybe it's, Jalen, maybe it's Fred takes a play off or two, or just, and again, I don't think that Fred and Dillon are immune to this criticism. I think they have moments where they have some defensive lapses as well. It's just fewer and further between, because those are the experienced vets. They know how to lock in. They know where they can kind of coast a little bit if they need to on a possession or two without costing the team points. But that's kind of the issue here, is we're seeing a team that I think is maybe running out of a little bit of juice here in staying true to their identity, their philosophy, the way that they played in the early going of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ime Udoka kind of, tries to resolve this issue, right? Does he have to get these guys like less minutes? Does he need to go deeper into his bench and run the bench unit, which based on how horribly they played in this game, maybe they shouldn't run the bench unit more burn, because my God, the bench that's kind of where the game got lost. You know what? We'll get into that. We're going to get into the game specifics here in just a moment, because this was not a pretty game. There were some silver linings, though. The play of Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore in specific, we're going to talk about those guys. We'll talk about some of the game plan discipline from this one. It's all coming up here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, around New Year's, we get obsessed with how to change ourselves instead of expanding on what we're already doing right. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. I've done therapy in the past, and I've found it incredibly helpful in my life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress that you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, because right now the NFL postseason is underway and there is no better time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. And all you have to do is wager $5. It's that simple. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get in on the NFL postseason action. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, Madison, in this game, there was a lot left to be desired as far as the execution in this one, both offensively and defensively. I've got a copious amount of thoughts, and we're probably not gonna be able to get to all of them in this very episode, but I'll let you steer the ship here for a moment first. What bothered you the most about this game in particular? I know we spent the first segment just kind of talking more of the overarching defensive issues for, to start this new year, but what bothered you about this game specifically?
Well, when I look at individual players, I want to lay some of my issues with this game on two particular players that I expect to perform better, who are our two most consistent players all year, and that's Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun. Fred VanVleet went 2 of 5 from the field today. He took 5 shots in a game where we only shot 30% from 3. Our best three-point shooter only took 4 threes, which means he only had 1 other shot in this game. That's unacceptable, especially from a team that was struggling so bad offensively tonight. And we really could have used him needed him in the way that he was there the entire fourth quarter for us in the Detroit game. Every time that this team was falling behind and needed somebody to wake them up, Fred VanVleet stepped up. And tonight, I just thought he kind of coasted. He kind of just played through the motions of the game, and he was not aggressive at looking for his shot and really forcing the other team to really guard him, and because of that, I think he as the head of the snake, him and Alperen Sengun, they have to get off to better first quarters and get this team rolling offensively as well. And I think this first quarter is where it got away. And for me, Fred VanVleet, I'll start with that. He wasn't aggressive enough offensively for me.
And I fully agree with your point there. And I do think over the course of the game, I think it got a little bit better. But the problem was, and this is the part that kind of confused me, is from an offensive game plan perspective, Embiid was just camping the paint all game long. Ryan Hollins was like irate about it on the broadcast, just begging for the Rockets to get Embiid in motion, to force him to guard, put him in pick and roll so that he has to do something, because all the possessions that resulted in just guys trying to ISO, go one-on-one, whatever, and trying to get downhill against Embiid without putting him in pick and roll were bad offensive possessions. Like, I don't know how many different times we saw the Rockets just try to straight up attack a set Sixers defense without getting into just, all you had to do was run some high pick and roll, force Embiid away from the rim, because then you run high pick and roll and you generate some wide open shots for Jalen, some wide open shots for Fred, who could have been a lot more aggressive in the pick and roll with Alperen and Sengun. And then there were moments where if you do get Embiid to move away and stop camping near the basket, we've seen LP when he's in motion coming off of out of the pick and roll and has like a full head of steam and gets that nice little pocket pass from Jalen or from Fred. He finishes really well around the rim because he's smaller, he's a little bit more agile, quick on his feet than some other bigs, and so he's able to kind of just do that little crafty kind of euro, get around, up and under move, whatever, or draw a foul because the other big is moving and sliding their feet, and he's so adept at drawing fouls. I just thought that was like the weirdest game plan decision or lack thereof, because they didn't target Embiid like at all. And he's the head of the snake for the Sixers. So if you target Embiid, you're going to generate some better offense. B, you're going to put him in foul trouble probably, which he wound up getting in foul trouble later in the game. But by then it was way too late. And that was because in the second half, they actually did start attacking him better. Like they actually started going at him. And I do want to point out too, to your point about Fred VanVleet and his lack of aggressiveness in this game, only attempting 5 shots, really off night for Fred. I want to give a lot of credit to the Sixers defense and their game plan and the fact that Nicholas Batum had him in hell, dude. Like, Nicholas Batum guarding Fred VanVleet is such a ridiculous, unfortunate mismatch, and that's not a mismatch in favor of the Rockets because Batum is a hell of a defender. He's lengthy. There was that one, man, there was that inbounds play that the Rockets had where Fred was trying to get the ball and he was in the coffin corner. And man, he tried to get the ball into Dillon Brooks. And like in my mind, I was thinking the moment Fred went to go take the ball out of bounds, I was like, could literally nobody else do that inbounds play? Like, why did it have to be Fred in that moment? Because you've literally got Nicholas Batum, who is a 6'8", lengthy forward guarding you in the worst inbounding corner in all of basketball. You're not going to get this ball in, man. And so that's, look, credit to the 76ers. Their defense was swarming. They stripped the ball from LP so many times early in that game. He had 4 first quarter turnovers, I believe. I don't think he registered the 5th one in the first quarter, but it was at least 4 first quarter turnovers. And like 2 or 3 of them were just defenders who came up from behind him when he was getting ready to do something with the ball. And I don't know if it was like a lack of communication, teammates not calling it out, right? Letting him know, hey, somebody's behind you, like, protect the ball, whatever. But it was just a bad first quarter approach from the Rockets, and it was also a great defensive showing from the Sixers, who kind of like, again, the Rockets allowed the Sixers the comfortability of playing that level of defense by letting Joel Embiid just sit in the paint, and then the other 4 guys were just super aggressive on the perimeter.
Yeah, and I think them overloading in the paint was a consistent theme throughout. And for me, Alperen Sengun didn't get deep inside the paint, the touches he usually gets, where he gets some easier layups. And when he finally did, I thought he kind of missed a couple of easy gimmies in the first half, especially. And he kind of settled for some shots that are makeable for him, but not great shots for him, especially when the Rockets needed points in crucial moments in this game. I mean, Joel Embiid had an incredible first half. He did. It was just classic Embiid. He got every foul call. It was, the works. And in order for us to stay in that game, we needed Alperen Sengun to deliver an all-star performance early, right? To give us some scoring punch to keep our head above water while Embiid was going.
Now, to be fair, a little bit. How insane is it that Daryl Morey goes from James Harden, the NBA's league-leading free throw merchant, to then getting the next NBA's league-leading free throw merchant in Joel Embiid, who shoots more free throws than God himself? Just look, and
17 of them tonight.
Credit to Embiid. He understands the game. He understands how to attack, how to draw fouls, how to get to the free throw line. He manipulates the game at a very near like James Harden-esque level, but for a big man, which is insane. In the first half, he had 26 points and he had 11 free throws, shot 11 of 11 at the line. So when you have a Sixers team that is shooting lights out from 3, You have a Joel Embiid that you cannot hope to contain in single coverage, and you're trying to double team him, but you're also not double teaming him in a smart way, because there were points where the Rockets would send a double team and they were not it was not effective double teams, right? They would send the double and then still somehow foul, which was a little ridiculous.
And the way Nick Nurse was running actions to get Joel and other players the ball, like in motion on switches, I actually thought that coaching was just excellent from Nick Nurse tonight. Like, not just defensively, you talked about the defensive game plan, but just some of the ways he got open threes for Harris or Tobias, right? Or in some of the actions where you just end up with a smaller player on Joel and Alperen trying from a switch, trying to come late to help. It was really just, I feel like, a great offensive game plan, honestly.
And at the end of the day, here's the crazy part: is the Rockets starters actually didn't play terribly compared to the Sixers starters, because you look up and down the board and you're like, okay, like, yeah, Embiid had his monster night. Maxey had 27, but he took 18 shots to get there, 8 of 18 shooting. Like, I think that the Rockets kind of could have matched the output of the Sixers starters. Yes, Embiid was racking up the points, whatever, but they were kind of in this game, starters versus starters. The bench was where the difference was made in this one. You look up and down the Sixers bench, the contributions that they got off the bench, absurd. From Paul Reed, Patrick Beverley, House had a couple buckets, Marcus Morris Sr., it was a lot from the Sixers bench. Meanwhile, the Rockets bench, even though there were some, silver linings in Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore's play, especially just the looks that we got to see out of them as the game progressed and we got into garbage time, that kind of stuff. Some of the things that we saw out of them are worth enjoying and some silver linings, because again, we want to see the rookies develop and get better and work on things. So we have some positive stuff to say about them, but the bench as a whole, as it played in the first half, when the game was actually still on the line, was pretty freaking horrendous. We can look right now. Jeff Green was a -28 off the bench in the first half, Madison, in one half of basketball. 24 minutes played. Jeff Green was a -28. Amen Thompson was a -15. Cam was a -10. Jae'Sean Tate was a -12. It was bad. And then Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green's plus minuses are also impacted because they were, at points out there with some of the bench guys. Sengun, for the game, for the half, he was -2. For the game, Sengun finished a -4 for the entire game. Dillon Brooks only a -6. Jabari Smith Jr. a little bit further off, a -8. Jalen Green -7 for the game. So the starters as a whole were not that far off and didn't absolutely lose the minutes that they were playing. It was the bench that just got demolished. And a huge part of that, man, was this decision to guard Joel Embiid with Jae'Sean Tate off the Rockets bench. I think Ime Udoka has done a lot of cool stuff. He's very creative. He's had a lot of great coaching moves. That move, Madison, was decidedly not it. For two factors. One, because Jae'Sean Tate cannot guard Joel Embiid. And two, the Rockets as a team are not disciplined enough and prepared enough for a scramble and recover defense, right? Ime actually just kind of introduced that in the Boston Celtics game, where he double teamed Tatum and Brown at times and forced guys to scramble and try to recover back to Kristaps Porzingis or the other shooters. And we saw the Celtics light them up. They kind of tried the same thing with Joel Embiid and the second unit, and it had a couple possessions where it kind of worked, where they forced the ball out of Embiid's hands. But once you do that, it's a 3-on-4 advantage or a 4-on-3 advantage for the Sixers, and they did a great job moving the basketball, finding the open man, getting up a quick look, and the Rockets just don't have the understanding yet, the capability to play that aggressive style of defense and do it well enough to get away with it, especially when you're that undersized. And then you go to the other side of the court, and they settled. It was 3 possessions in a row, right? Right after Jae'Sean Tate checked in the game, it was 2 straight back-to-back Jae'Sean Tate threes and then a missed Jeff Green 3. And I'm like, oh my God, this offense is about to sink to the bottom of the ocean floor.
Yeah, man. It was a tough watch for the bench. And it got out of hand quick. It got out of hand quick. But yeah, no, Jae'Sean Tate on Joel Embiid was a no-no. And honestly, Jae'Sean Tate hasn't been that great defensively in a while. It's been a tough go for him, but hopefully he'll be able to bounce back, in the upcoming weeks. But the Rockets got to up their physicality. They have to do something. I will say, I thought they did much better job on Joel Embiid in that second half, in that third quarter in specific. I thought the refs finally stopped giving him knick-knack calls, and we were able to actually get some stops on him. And Alperen Sengun had some very good defensive plays against him as well.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That third quarter was at least a positive silver lining in that you're like, okay, the Rockets were able to actually match the Sixers a little bit in that third quarter. I always struggle, though, when a team is that far ahead in a game. I always struggle with finding like a moral victory there, because it's like, did the Sixers kind of take their foot off the gas a little bit because they're up 20 and that's why the Rockets suddenly look a little bit better? Let's choose to just believe. And I think the eye test matches that the execution was better. The competitiveness was a little bit better in that quarter. It's just the game was so far out of reach at that point, and they're on the third game in 3.5 days, right? Because you play the back-to-back, you get the 1 day off, and then you have to roll into Monday and play a noon tip-off. Like, that's a brutal 3-game stretch. That's not you've done 3 games in 4 nights, right? But like, that's 3 games in like 3.5 nights or whatever you want to call it, because they didn't get that extra stretch of time that you get because they had the 12 p.m. tip-off. It hurt. It was a bad loss. There's a reason the 76ers are a really good team. Joel Embiid made his return in this game because, of course, he did. And he looked like every bit the reigning MVP that we know that he is. So that's it is what it is at this point. But we do want to talk about we'll end on a couple positive notes here. We'll talk about the Rockets rookies, because even though this season has been about wins and the Rockets is more competitive as a team, they look a lot better. The development of the young guys is still the number one priority for this organization, and for this organization to get to where they want to be down the line, the young guys have to find ways to develop. And so seeing some positive steps from Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore, even if they are in garbage time at times, it's exciting stuff to be able to talk about. So we're going to talk about those two guys and any final thoughts we have coming up here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Look, I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we talk for just a minute about preparing for real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, which is honestly pretty scary stuff to consider. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if a close friend or a loved one got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from the life-saving medication that they needed. Thankfully, you're going to be covered because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, skin infections, respiratory infections, so many other things that could happen to any one of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of their regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Again, that's jacemedical.com. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your order today. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, I want you to take a deep breath. Do it with me. Madison, come on, do it with me. Let it all out. It's going to be okay. All right. It's going to be okay, guys. The sky is not falling. The Rockets have had a rough go of it on this road trip. It's okay. There's a reason that the Rockets are a team that have aspirations to just make the play-in tournament. And there's a reason that the 76ers have the reigning MVP and have championship aspirations. There are different classes of team in the NBA, and the Rockets are on the upswing, yes, and things look better, but we need to also rein in our expectations a little bit. Stuff like this is going to happen over the course of an 82-game season. And the Rockets, I think this road trip has been a nice little reality check at times for the Rockets.
Especially with the schedule. It's not just the Rockets. There's been a slew of blowouts across the league because of the play-in mix up of these back-to-back nights and all these traveling and early starts. It's just been a very weird and tough things. A lot of schedule losses across the league. This is not just happening to the Houston Rockets right now. It's happening to a slew of teams. A lot of people are getting blown out in schedule losses. So guys, we'll get it together.
All right. Where are we going first for our 2 silver linings to wrap up this episode? Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore. Who are we talking about first, Madison?
Yeah, so I think we got to go Cam, man. We got to go our guy Cam Whitmore. Cam continues to impress, and because he continues to impress, his minutes continue to go up. I know we had some garbage time minutes tonight, but it's clear that Cam is getting serious minutes, and to me, it's starting to seem to surpass Amen's minutes. You know what I mean? Even in second halves, getting more minutes, and of course the crunch time minutes in the Chicago game. But as of this game, one of the things that I noticed that Cam got that I've been waiting to see more of is a creation rep, a pick and roll creation rep. He had one very good pick and roll creation rep where he actually, I think, scored in that play. It was
the midi that he pulled up, right? So he got the screen from LP. He dribbled. It looked a little funky. I'm not gonna lie. Like he kind of looked a little like he wasn't sure what he was gonna do. It was like he hadn't gotten a pick before, so he was like, "Where am I going?"
He was like, "Oh, it's on me."
Yeah, all his plays to this point have either been catch and shoot threes or like transition plays or like attacking off the catch, where like he creates all his own offense, right? And he's been really good at that, but then he gets like the screen from LP and he kind of like dribbles into it like, oh, how am I navigating this pick and roll? Elevated from about like, free throw line area, mid-range. And it went in. He knocked it down, so.
Yeah, I mean, I just think Cam has that innate ability to he knows how to get the ball in the hole. When all this fails, I'm going to pull up, and it's a very good chance I'm going to make it because I'm talented enough. And he just has like that shot-making ability.
Early in the first half, too, he had like a soft, like one-handed floater from like
almost nice.
Free throw line range. Like it was kind of far out. And I kind of, like the moment he shot it, I was like, is that a bad shot? Like, I don't, but then he made it and I was like, if it goes in, it could maybe still be a bad shot. But like, that's kind of the crazy thing about Cam is he has different tools in his bag that he hasn't really had a chance to like showcase fully yet, but he'll have moments like that, like when he posted up Damian Lillard right on the mismatch. He has little wrinkles to his game. He's not just your stereotypical like bucket getting scorer or whatever. He has a lot to his game.
Yeah, and he also had a very, very nice kick out to, I believe, Amen Thompson in the corner. I believe he missed the shot, but it was a very nice kick out in traffic where he was down low deep and he drew a lot of defenders and was able to make that pass. And that's the type of development we need to see from him if we want him to become a star in the future. He's going to have to be able to make those passes. And like we were talking about with that rep he had in the pick and roll, it was a funky rep. You could tell he wasn't all the way comfortable, but I think him pulling up in that situation was the right decision because they did not leave Alperen Sengun. Alperen Sengun would have been his release man, and they stayed home on a lot of those shooters, and that was the actual correct choice. You could just see it kind of churn in the decision-making, churning in his head, and it to me, there's something there to build off of, and I like that he's starting to find a couple of reps in the flow of the game in a similar way that Jabari Smith has been finding his rhythm and ways to get some isolation reps within the rhythm of the game. And I think that's the next step for him now that his minutes has gone up. Can we get 2 or 3 possessions where we let Cam initiate to see what he actually has in that department and what he needs to work on to get better?
I'm torn because yeah, like, I kind of think the reps that Cam could benefit from are not maybe necessarily reps where he like walks the ball up and initiates the offense, right? But just like the occasional, kind of like what Dillon gets, right? Like the way that Dillon will occasionally get like a screen, a screen and roll opportunity coming off the wing or whatever.
Yes.
Maybe, they run the initial action, right? So that kind of thing. So,
and not initiate as a point guard, but I feel like when you initiate the pick and roll, you know what I mean? I feel like that's an initiation rep.
For sure. No, for sure. You're right. We're on the same page there. Sorry. I don't know why, like I started kind of I just started thinking like,
please, I don't want to
can't run an offense. No, but no. And again, that's the delicate balance here for this Rockets team because they've got the rookies, they've got young guys, they've got, Jalen and Jabari and Alpi and Tari, who's still currently out, but they've got these young guys who they want to work on and refine their skills and grow them. But at the same time, they're trying to win basketball games. So it's how much, if you're looking at it as like a Venn diagram, right? How much overlap can you get between the two circles of, hey, we're trying to win games, we're also trying to develop these guys as much as possible? Because the moment you start putting too many eggs in the developmental basket, that's when you start to see, too many mistakes being made and suddenly, a couple guys have an off game because you're sacrificing reps to them and you're not winning basketball games. And that's when you're sliding too far in one direction. But then you also have those moments where if you're prioritizing the vets over certain young guys in certain lineups, then, those guys aren't going to get valuable on-court reps to actually get better. And I think that's why we saw such a loud section of the fan base, kind of championing for minutes for Cam Whitmore, because he's shown us a lot in very limited run. And now he's at a point where these minutes are helping him, right? Like we're seeing him get better on a game by game basis. And that's been really exciting stuff to witness happen in real time. So love what we've seen from Cam Whitmore. He really has kind of like stepped into that role, and his skill set, right, is a little bit more tailor-made to step into an ancillary role than, say, Amen Thompson's is, which is why I think at this point you're seeing Ime start to trust Cam and provide him with even more minutes at this point than Amen Thompson is getting, because Amen's role is just a little bit different, right? Like he has moments where he's able to initiate and run the offense, but there's also large stretches of time where he's on the floor and he's being used in an off-ball capacity, or he's being used as like a 3-and-D wing, but minus the 3-point shooting, which is not great for offensive floor spacing. And he's still making the most of it, right? He has games where he walks away with a handful of like offensive rebounds. He'll get some tip-ins. He had one in this game, right? So he does good things on the floor, but it's just a lot harder to get those reps for Amen than it is to get the reps for Cam.
Yeah, it's a lot harder when you are when you are a non-shooting wing, right? And that's because that's not his position. He's supposed to be running point guard. He's just not ready for that. That requires a lot more responsibility than what we're asking Cam to be in that ancillary role. But I do want to praise Amen Thompson's defense. I mean, Amen Thompson's on point with his rotations. I think he's really impressive defensively. He uses his length well when he gets switched on to better primary defenders. I think he's held up really well, and over the course of him and Cam have gotten better on defense and limiting their mistakes. Especially Cam had a lot of off-ball mistakes when guys will just cut back, or he'll get lost in the scrum of the play. The game was kind of moving
or like a little late on a switch, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because those are like rep things where it's just, again, you do it enough times, it becomes second nature, right? It becomes okay, cool, switch is coming, I know that I'm hitting this switch, right? That's why when you see the starters out there, the starters obviously log the most minutes together. So the starters, by and large, look pretty cohesive at times defensively because they have all those reps playing with one another. They understand, Jalen and Dillon are getting ready to do a switch. They understand exactly who's switching where, how we're guarding this certain play. Cam hasn't had those opportunities yet. But to your point about Amen, right? I think at this point, Amen is probably further along where I thought he would be defensively, because he really is a great impact player on the defensive side. That's why he's still earning minutes. That's why Ime is still trusting him out there on the court, kind of in that pseudo wing role. And then I think he's maybe a little bit further behind offensively, but it's not necessarily his fault. It's more just the minutes that he's getting. Again, if he was drafted to the Blazers or something and he was given 30 plus minutes a night to be the point guard and run the team and have 4 shooters around him, he'd probably be racking up like 20 and 7 on a nightly basis. I feel like pretty confident in saying that. It might not be a super efficient 20 and 7, but I'm telling you, like the moments where we've seen Amen drive and kick and recognize where his shooters are and get the kick out passes, Rockets just can't shoot worth a damn, right? So like there's a plenty of times he kicks it out, makes the right read, gets it to an open shooter, and you clank, like, so that's problematic. It's going to take a little bit longer for him to really be comfortable running an NBA offense top to bottom, which is also kind of why it's beneficial that he does have a Fred VanVleet next to him, who is a guy that can play in either the on-ball, run the offense role, or you shift him a little bit more off-ball and get him in those reps.
Yeah. Ultimately, we like the progression of what these young rookies have been showing us, and they are getting better. We've seen them incrementally get better and more comfortable if it's Cam and switches and off-ball play, as well as Amen starting to initiate more and pass the ball a lot, as well as get some steals out and get out and running in transition. I mean, when Amen gets out in transition, I feel really good about the decisions he's going to make at that point. So, that's what we want to see from our young guys.
And his finishing in this game, too, was on another level. He missed his one 3-point attempt that he had, but he was 7 of 7 inside the arc. He had that one little like midi pull up where he kind of hesitated and then pulled up from the free throw line. And then aside from that, everything else was at the rim, and he hit every single shot. A career high 14 points for Amen Thompson in this game. So some positive stuff definitely to be excited about with him. And the last point here that I want to echo before we shut things down is just, again, the kind of the stakes of this season, I think, have skewed some of our perception of what this team needs to be right now, or what they should be, or what should be happening on the floor. we should be incredibly excited with the production that we've seen from Amen and Cam, because they are productive players that can help winning right now as rookies. That doesn't happen a lot. I think that there's, you know, if we were to compare like Amen and Cam in their rookie seasons right now to the rookie seasons of guys like Jalen or Jabari, those guys were not ready to help winning at a high level as rookies. They were given a different structure, right, or lack thereof. But they were given all the room in the world to just make mistakes and do whatever they wanted to do. And we're seeing Amen and Cam actually be functional, viable pieces of a team that can play and has played very high-level basketball. Now, they've struggled as of late. They've struggled on the road trip, yes. But those two guys are really exciting for that reason alone, that as rookies, they've been able to be, you know, impact winning at a decent level as rookie players, which does not happen a lot. So I just wanted to make sure we made that point before we shut things down. But any final thoughts, Madison, before we wrap up?
No, just looking forward for the Rockets, get a couple days off, a day or two off, get some rest, and, you know, come back with more attention to detail, more effort on the defensive end.
I thought you were going to say come back with a win against the Knicks. Come on, let's speak it into existence.
Yes, man, let's come back with a win against the Knicks.
A win against the Knicks. We're going to look like such dumbasses when that doesn't
no,
happen.
we're not.
All right, on that note, you know the drill. Let everybody know where to track you down at, man.
Yeah, man, follow me on Twitter or X at MadmanLeaks. Come talk Rockets ball with me.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, the Odyssey app, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.